Hey,
There it is, the worst theme song in the history of the internet. Anytime you say the worst anything in the history of the internet, you've really accomplished something. So congratulations, Mark.
I'm getting some like real Death from Smoochie vibes there.
yeah, apply whatever jokes you want. I'll take all the criticism and all the love because it's actually quite the earworm. You'll be singing this for the rest of the day. You're welcome.
All right, this edition of MarTech Live is brought to you by the MarTech Conference. 2 MarTech conferences coming your way this fall. The first, September 17th. That's this coming Wednesday. Live, online, 6-panel discussions, as it says here, 1 day, 1 track. Zero fluff. We're talking about data and AI, 6 sessions, all live panels. Scan the QR code. Free, online. Join us September 17th. And you'll also have a chance to pre-register for November 4th. We'll be talking about agents and AI. That event's going to kick off with a presentation by Scott Brinker, who just happened to have nothing to do this morning and is joining us. Thank you, Scott. Welcome to the 2 people who went to Inbound and 1 who didn't edition of MarTech Live. I'm the one who didn't. Mark and Scott both made the trip out to San Francisco, so I think we're going to start there. Mark, how was Inbound?
What's that?
How was Inbound?
It was great, man. It's so fun to get out of the office and meet people. I met so many people. And, Inbound is 13,000 people, so there were plenty to meet. I did not meet all 13,000. But loaded with parties, all sorts of private dinners and public dinners and great sessions. I had an opportunity to speak. We can talk about it later if you want. I did these 4 new collab sessions, which are these kind of like speakeasy designed, limited, no presentation, collaborative groups. It was a gas. It was awesome. And I was fortunate enough to have dinner with Scott himself and Sean Goodine. And we had a great dinner at the House of Nanking Fangs. And it was an incredible time. So yeah, the event was phenomenal. It really was class event all the way around. Super fun.
That was your first trip to Inbound. Scott, how many Inbounds did you get under your belt over the years?
Wow. Well, certainly all of them during my time at HubSpot, which this Inbound was actually the grand conclusion of my 8 years leading the HubSpot technology partner ecosystem. But it was the first one in San Francisco, which, for what it's worth, I like that vibe. There's something about like shaking it up. I'll also say for HubSpot, taking it to Salesforce's backyard, I kind of like the gumption of that. But seeing San Francisco plastered with like HubSpot posters, advertisements, I was digging that.
Did you have any MarTech OG vibes? Because we did the first 4 or 5. Well, we did the first one in Boston, but then we did, I think, 3 or 4 at the Hilton in San Francisco. And it was nice to be back in a conference context in San Francisco. That I remember.
Yeah. If I had had some spare time, I would have, engaged in the massive maze known as the Hilton Hotel Complex. But because I've spent days completely lost in that. But it was a good vibe. Awesome. John's Grill.
That's right.
All right. So among the things that happened at Inbound, more product announcements and updates than we probably have time to list. That includes 20 Breeze AI agents. And then I think the thing that got a lot of attention was the new playbook, which we wrote about a couple times, once during the show and then once today on the MarTech site, looking at marketers' reaction to the new playbook, Loop Marketing, as they're calling it, which is sort of the replacement for Inbound, the strategy, as opposed to Inbound, the event. It is, I wrote on the site that everybody is familiar with late 2024. HubSpot loses a bunch of blog traffic from a Google update, and then we've seen the use of LLMs kind of diminish that whole inbound game. Traffic to your website, convert it into customers, relying on content creation and SEO. Back in April, HubSpot Spotlight event in New York, people from HubSpot got up there on stage and said inbound is dead. So I think everybody was kind of like, okay, so.
And here we are at Inbound.
So we get to September in San Francisco and Loop Marketing gets unveiled, which is kind of like more of a flywheel than the funnel. Interesting stuff. And I think the reaction about it, I'm going to put up the article actually if I can. The reaction I think was about what I expect anyway. It is, if you're a HubSpot fan, if you like HubSpot, you think it's great. If you are somebody who has a problem with the way B2B marketing is being conducted in some circles, if you think there's too much reliance on the tech, then you're going to have the same problems you had with the inbound strategy in all likelihood. And other people, I'm going to go down to the bottom here of the article. Chris Rack represents the people who are just frankly already sick of hearing about it. So they run the gamut, as you would expect, from big fans to people who are already sick of having to deal with it. How much talk at the show was there about loop marketing?
There was some. There was some. Can you? By the way, they are power washing my house right now at the perfect time. I don't know if you can hear that, but
I was hearing a bit of the swoosh there. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I thought that was just you thinking carefully.
Yeah. You can smell the smoke all the way from there. I don't know, Scott, if how much loop talk you heard. It was funny. I sort of started a bunch of conversations with this, which is, do you think they're going to rename inbound to loop bound or something? If inbound is actually dead. I mean, there's a huge, we were joking before, the equity that we have in these brands matters a lot. Chief MarTech, marketing, martech.org, whatever. And so inbound obviously has a huge amount of equity as an event platform for HubSpot. Loop is a new thing. I don't think they're saying inbound is dead per se. It's evolving a little bit like SEO and GEO. But there wasn't a lot of discussion about Loop itself to me. I don't know about you, Scott. It was more jokey about like, are they going to read it in a conference, which I don't think is relevant.
Yeah. And by the way, just as an aside, we have to have a little discussion here about, is it GEO or AEO or really help for us to do we have the authority to make the official call on that? Because that would be helpful. I don't know. I mean, there wasn't a tremendous amount of discussion about the loop in the circles in which I was hanging out. So again, that being my last week, as an official HubSpotter, most of my time was spent meeting with partners, particularly the technology partners. Nothing made me happier, and having that be, the culmination of my work at HubSpot, that entire show floor, was just dozens and dozens of major technology companies, that were there talking about how they integrated with HubSpot and what they could do for customers. To me, the main vibe, which is, again, the thing I got most excited about, is HubSpot's steadily moving up market. This is a little bit to that thing of bringing the fight to Salesforce, not just metaphorically, but actually in their backyard. And so I think folks are really excited about that. And a lot of the actual product announcements that came out, really spoke to the capabilities that more larger mid-market companies, wanted. And so I don't know, again, maybe you hear what you want to hear. Yeah. You self-select the people you hang out with. But to me, it was less loop and more upmarket and ecosystem.
Yeah, I got a lot of that too. And I'm curious, just 8 years ago, when you went to HubSpot, did you have the sort of Salesforce App Center in mind as a model? Because I had multiple conversations last week where it was like, with those exact partners, the call rails and I talked, a lot of those are our customers as well. We had a lot of discussion with them. And it just struck me that back in the day, Salesforce really did innovate this idea of the App Center within the ecosystem. And here you guys seemingly have replicated that in a really interesting way as you've climbed, not you, HubSpot, you former you, but you as HubSpot climbs, to mid in the enterprise market. There's a lot of, but my main question is, did you use that as a model? Was that in your mind? Like, these guys pulled it off, we can do the same thing.
Certainly as an inspiration, I mean, the reality is there were just been a handful of companies, particularly back in 2017, who had really created cloud tech ecosystems. There was Salesforce, there was Atlassian, there was Shopify. We're pretty much at the end of the list. I mean, there were some others, but they sort of trailed off. Those were really the 3 big ones. And so, when I got started on that mission, one of the things we did is we did a field trip to meet with a lot of the people who are either currently running those ecosystems, or we didn't get to meet with the Salesforce people who are currently running that. but we met with some of the former people who had run it, and just really tried to understand what worked, what didn't. So, Yeah, it is not just you. That was a very
Yeah.
intentional learning that we were trying to take.
It's fascinating, and I wonder. And we talked a little bit about this in Boston. How do you think the move? I don't know that I don't know that I can formally say the move from API to MCP or other transfer protocols is an actual move. But how is the technology, AI in particular, affecting kind of the ecosystems? Because it seems to me that we've got linking. So here, I was up till 3 a.m. You want like, what was I doing last night at 3 a.m.? I was trying to get ChatGPT to talk to Apple Notes. And my wife woke up. She's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "You do not want to know what I'm doing right now." And it's not anything that you'd be upset about. But I am up at 3 o'clock in the morning on my phone. But those integrations seem to provide an enormous amount of power that goes beyond an API call to go grab some data. Like, do you think that that's the next evolution of these ecosystems, or do you think it's something else is going on here?
Yeah, I mean, all right. So, having been in this ecosystem game even before HubSpot, I mean, the number one challenge in MarTech was integration. And the reason it's such a problem is because any given product that wanted to integrate to any given platform, Salesforce, HubSpot, Dynamics, whatnot, basically had to go learn the documentation, what's the specific design for this specific platform. And this became a big barrier to people creating integrations between products. Now, there was an upside to that, is if you were able to get enough momentum of people building things to your platform, that became a moat because they were only going to build to like so many platforms. And so the fact that we got to a place where a lot of companies in MarTech said like, okay, we're going to build an integration to Salesforce and we're going to build an integration to HubSpot. Woohoo, that was victory. But still, even in the last couple years, it still became a challenge where we would like talk to phenomenal companies, that we clearly saw a business opportunity for our two companies to go to market together. But the only thing standing between us and that was, oh, all right, well, who's actually going to build this integration and when is that going to get on the engineering roadmap and so on? And so the promise of MCP, and it is still quite early on this, but the promise of MCP is like, hey, listen, if you build an MCP server and you've got an MCP client, any MCP client can talk to any MCP server. Well, hand waving there is to like, access controls and things like that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, like for ecosystems, I think this is phenomenal because, that eliminates that first gate of friction, that held us back from getting these things to work together. That being said, I still think there's a lot of things beyond that first gate, that create a true ecosystem. It's the validation of how these things work together, the agreement on, again, like compliance, requirements, security requirements, any sort of like true partnership of how do you go to market together? How do you sell together? How do you make sure customers are well supported? So don't get me wrong, there's plenty of things for like ecosystem leaders to still do in an MCP world, but getting rid of that first barrier of just the raw technical connection between these integrations, it is one of the most exciting things for me in the AI side of things.
Yeah, it's a game changer. I know that a couple of weeks ago, I did a demo for our large audience here. We were looking at a platform called Obot, which is very simple, but super handy. They have a SaaS and a GitHub, downloadable, executable, but they had built just an open door to MCP servers. I had read about it, just like, you just articulated what they are, but like until you put your hands on one and actually go like, you talk to one and you're like, oh, I just put in my password and I now have access to the whole thing. The lack of friction is a game changer. It's a little bit like the lack of friction of using a chatbot itself versus, other mechanisms. I think that is the unlock. I think that's why people are excited about MCPs. And like, I was talking to somebody at HubSpot about the different protocols, HTTP versus, then TCP/IP, email protocols. Like there's been protocol battles throughout the ages, and there will continue to be. I don't know that MCP will win or not. It doesn't really matter, but the door has been kicked open. Something will win that is like an MCP server, and ultimately, I think we are really off to the races because it's such a massive unlock. I don't even need to know field names. I don't need to do integrate. Like you just start. It was eye opening. Like that was the whole point of me finding Obot and going like, I just need to get my hands on an MCP. Now Claude has it. It's much easier, but it's pretty impressive. And I do think it's a frictionless unlock that I don't think we've seen before, which I think is interesting.
I do, if you don't mind, want to give kudos to the HubSpot product team on taking the leap for basically opening up MCP server access to both ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini. There's been a lot of discussion this year of like, okay, what is the relationship between these SaaS platforms and these AI engines? Like, are the AI engines just going to subsume them? And I think you've seen a lot of the large SaaS players actually be relatively hesitant to like, oh yeah, no, I'm not sure we actually want to open this up so people can just use our software, from ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And I think it was a bold move on HubSpot's part to say like, no, actually, this is changing the game in various ways, but people are going to use these tools. And the whole point of having a platform is to make it easy for people to use this platform in whatever set of tools they want. So, yeah, kudos on a bold move there.
Yeah, I agree. I would agree with the kudos, and I think someone was going to go first, and I'm not surprised. It was frankly HubSpot. I think like have you, and I know it's dangerous what I'm about to say, but have either of you hooked up ChatGPT to like your Gmail?
No, not yet.
Yeah, it's like Scott, right? It's kind of unbelievable, right? Like like for me, I was like, oh, this is a whole. I haven't done my corporate, so if anybody's watching, I did it my personal with my personal GPT and my personal, but like I'm now able to sort of query. I actually created a task the other day where every day it looks when I subscribe to newsletters, I apply a tag. So like daily newsletters. So newsletters come in, they get auto filtered into a tag. I have ChatGPT paying attention to that tag, and every 24 hours it writes me a full on summary and just sends me. ChatGPT goes, "Here's your emails." Like, oh, this is amazing. So like it's an automation game changer that gives me direct access. I am now building kind of Marc brain in Google Drive because I have direct access to it. It's kind of unbelievable, honestly, right? That's not even MCP. I don't think the protocol for ChatGPT is actually MCP, but its net effect is the same. So I think the notion of trying to play the game where we create walled gardens, I mean, you can play that game. I just don't think that world exists the way it used to, is my theory.
Yeah. Lean into it.
Agree.
How about for the users? Because I remember when I think the ChatGPT connection to HubSpot was the first one that was announced. The reaction, judging from LinkedIn, was like, "Oh my god, this is amazing! It's like natural language querying of my customer database." And then, by later that day or the next day, it was like, your customer data, ChatGPT. I don't like how that feels. So, what is that? How much of that is sort of like a cultural, we've got to open our eyes to what's possible, and how much of that is legitimate concern?
Well, I mean, all of the above. Like one of the things like HubSpot was not reckless about how to approach this. First of all, like when you connect into HubSpot, it's like your particular login, right? So it's only things that you would have access to if you were in the HubSpot interface. Same thing that you're getting access to, in Claude, ChatGPT, all those things. There's also a lot of negotiations that go on with these companies about like agreements of like, okay, you can't actually, retain or, train on, this sort of data. And frankly, at the end of the day, like, I mean, this is the thing for any enterprise that's wanting to leverage, these tools from OpenAI or Anthropic or Google. And those companies aren't stupid about this. They understand what those requirements are of enterprises. And of course they're going to like, say like, okay, yeah, fine. No, this is the isolation of it, and we're not going to touch that. Now, I mean, again, do you still have the right to be slightly paranoid? Please take your own your degree of paranoia that suits you fine. I'll stop being paranoid when they stop coming after me. Yeah, I don't know. I think the risk reward balance there is actually pretty favorable.
I think that was my first comment actually to somebody on LinkedIn was like, HubSpot's a publicly traded company. They're not going to be reckless with this. There were lawyers involved. Let's be realistic. I don't think the distrust was on the side of HubSpot. I will say that it was, it was the other company involved that people were not sure about. Anything else from Inbound worth sharing? What was the vibe? You talked about like the partners and the HubSpot moving up market back. So a couple of weeks before Inbound, I spent some time with Angela DeFranco, who's a VP of product and works on the marketing hub products in particular. And I asked her what she was hearing from like HubSpot customers since we talked back in April, and she detected a lot of anxiety about AI, about the old stuff not working anymore. And so certainly a lot of the announcements related to Marketing Hub and the Data Hub and the Breeze products were kind of aimed at easing that anxiety. And then I think the playbook was more of like okay, here's how you put all that together. But yeah, that space between April and September, all we heard about was traffic to websites disappearing and LLMs and zero click and all that stuff. So what was the vibe related to that kind of stuff?
I mean, all right, so a couple of things. First of all, Angela's amazing. She was originally a product manager at HubSpot years and years ago, and then she left HubSpot to like lead product for Seven Rooms, that sort of high-end restaurant reservation platform, and just came back. And yeah, she is totally committed to rethinking the future of marketing and how would a great marketing hub product, address this. One thing I guess I would say, so this is maybe, I have a very different perspective on this. It sounds like than most people, which is, I think this whole inbound is dead thing is a bunch of horse crap. I mean, the concept of inbound was like, customers are finding you, based on things that you create and you produce and the way you represent yourself out in the world, you attract them. That is as alive and well as it ever was. It's simply the fact that people's behaviors of how they're finding that information and learning about these things has shifted, from the Google search and the 10 blue links. I guess I'll click through on each of them to try and figure out, what I want, to like taking it up a level and being able to work with these AI answer engines, But the questions they're asking are the same kind of questions they were asking before. Most of the content they're getting is the same kind of content they were getting before, which is influencing, their like selection set, their evaluation options. A lot of the content that companies are producing to feed into those AI answer engines is the same. I mean, again, there's things on the margin, but the only really significant thing that has changed has been the measurability of the top of the funnel of that. And yes, I get it. That kind of sucks. It was nice. We had a good 20-year, 25-year run where we had this really great visibility, into every step along the way. We've lost that. Boo-hoo. But it's not like the fundamental behavior of customers has changed all that much in how they're doing it. And so I don't know. Sorry, I'm done with my rant.
Yeah, as you were talking through that, I was thinking, yes, but the measurability and the attribution are what changed, and that leads to the anxiety, I think, because the marketer's performance is judged by the measurability and attribution. So I think you're 100% right? You're going to some other place to do research, and it's going to give you information to help you make that decision. And like you said, it's reading content that was, at least some of it, produced by that vendor. So really what's changed is the dots, the ability to connect the dots, I guess.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, I don't know what report it was, but there was a recent report, I think it was SEMrush Datos data that really has demonstrated, I think they've demonstrated this a couple of times now, that actually Google search volume is increasing at pace with LLM usage. So it appears that what people are doing is doing even further, tippy top of the funnel research by asking questions and then going, okay, I've got a decision set. I've got some citations. Maybe they're clicking, maybe they're not, frankly, that I don't know. But clearly what's happening is Google search volume is also going up. So there seems to be some interplay between those things. So it may just be a reshuffling of, the funnel. Maybe there is a tippy top of the funnel now that is not measurable, that then leads to that measurable thing. I don't know. The tenor I got, especially in my sessions where we were talking about resistance, my sessions are all about how do you rearrange your brain to regain some sense of control and momentum in this age of massive change. And what I found interesting was most of my sessions I started with, let me just apologize in advance. I don't have any AI tips for you today. And it was palpable relief. They were like, thank God. We don't want more tips on how to use AI. I don't need another prompt guide. I don't need any of that stuff. I need to think about, I want to think about how I can navigate through all of the torrent of information that's coming at me. And I think that, I don't know where we are in the hype cycle. Let me just put it that way. But I think we're past at least the first crest. And I think what people are wrestling with is, okay, we still didn't solve our data problems. We still have MarTech stack bloat. we still don't have people who know what they're doing. Now we have to get everybody trained on AI, for God's sake, whatever the hell that means. I think that there's a real sense of like, and then you've got the additional benefit of like companies laying people off and do more with less and all the rest of the stuff. So I think we're in this massive moment of disruption and change. And it's hard, right? And I think like the average marketer is probably like looking around going like, where's solid ground? What do I do? Me personally, I think this is the exact moment to go back to first principles. Mm-hmm. Think about, product place, like, your 4Ps, like as ironic as that might seem in the age of AI, but I think there's no other solid ground to stand on than core base principles and then build from there. I think the thing that I keep running into is we have this super alien technology that can do all this stuff. They've made all these promises of technology, but no one ever fixed the basics, right? The data is still busted. And so you layer powerful AI on top of bad data, it's going to get ugly. And I think people are wrestling with that. And I think that other side of the hype cycle where people start to get upset or frustrated, I think my sense is that's for some of us, that's where we're at in that process. But that's a hypothesis.
Yeah. Since you brought it up, I put up, Marc, the 4 Ps of marketing reimagined for the AI era, published today.
Great piece.
MarTech. Angela Vega with Expedia Group. She's going to be speaking September 17th. All right, plug is over. Scott can now respond to what Marc said.
Oh, no, that's awesome. But all right, so where this thread had started, I think the changes to inbound are overblown. I think the larger disruption, that you were just describing there, Marc, that is not overblown. It is like really every facet of, how marketing actually operates, is now up for grabs. And while the principles remain the same, the way in which we execute on that and engage with the world, it is changing. And there's so much changing so fast that I have not met a single marketer. I mean, forget just about at the Inbound conference. I mean, anywhere, if I happen to run into them, like drinking heavily at a bar somewhere. I mean, they're like rightfully panicked, about just trying to figure all of this out. It's funny. There was a Wall Street Journal article that came around somewhere on LinkedIn, I think from this week, that I don't know. You may not appreciate this. Basically, this Wall Street Journal article was saying, had a bunch of quotes from a bunch of these companies. They're like, yeah, and actually we can't really hire the consulting companies for this because none of them actually know any of this stuff too. We hire them, and then on our dime, they're trying to figure out how to do this. Quite frankly, my high school kid, has figured out, more than they have. And while, I'm sure the consulting companies don't appreciate me pointing that out, it does actually put marketers, again, like every executive, in this really hard position where there are no wise people upon the hill to turn to for answers at this yet. We are at the vanguard. We are trying to figure this out together, and that's a challenging place to be.
It's also a huge opportunity. I mean, I don't know, Scott, all of us are of a certain age. We've been around for a while. I know I have. This feels what you just described. I think I actually wrote the article. I'm not sure we published it yet, Mike, but it's that late 90s feel. Right? Like in the late 90s, we were like, everyone needs a website. And business was like, why the hell do we need a website? We're like, because you need one. Right? It's like there's this feeling of change in the air, and there are no experts. And the people who claim to be experts are not, because you can't really be an expert yet. Right? Like, I think, just to bring it all the way back to Loop, I think that's why Loop is interesting conceptually. I'm sure that's how they built Loop. I mean, I think that Inbound is not dead, but I think the way that they've designed Loop and the pillars that they have in there kind of play into, I think, Scott, what you just said, which is there's these new disciplines. They're built on top of first principles. Nothing's changed there, but the execution, I on my podcast on Playbook Broken, I've asked every single person, like, are we finally going to get Don Pepper's and Martha Rogers' vision of the future, one-to-one marketing? Is it really going to happen? Is it going to be AI powered? I'm not entirely sure it is, but a lot of vendors are saying yes. Like, AI is the unlock to do deep one-to-one personalization. I'm not so sure, because humans are chaos and data is messy and whatever, but that's the promise, right? And in a world where you could potentially market true one-to-one, and you don't have one-to-many relationships with mass groups of segmentation customers, like, what does that do? Like, how do you deal with that on a just a mark? Like, I'm a marketer. How do I deal with that? That's, I don't know. I think there's real change coming. I think it's very, very exciting, massive amount of opportunity, but in an opportunity, if you listen to Melissa Reeve, who's one of our contributors, talk about hyper adaptive, her book is coming out soon. she did a session at Inbound. We spent some time together. She's really leaning on the classic disruption examples, the Netflixes, the Blockbusters, and saying like, this is a moment where this kind of thing happens. And it's the wash. So I'm curious to see, I mean, from Third Media standpoint, media, like we get to cover this stuff. So it's all great, but like living in it is also terrifying.
Exciting and exhausting.
Yeah.
And terrifying. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I know, Marc, you wanted to spend some time taking us on your journey through Clay.
Yeah.
And want to explain what Clay is?
Can I? I won't do it justice. So I think anybody in the space has heard about Clay. And Clay is sort of this, excuse me, next generation-ish data platform. They've built a bunch of integrations. They have a bunch of data points. They're consuming content. They've got web scrapers. They've got AI built into it. It's kind of a workshop for go-to-market motions.
Yeah.
It allows you to
they call it a GTM development platform. And some of the kind of impressive things about Clay, $200 million they've raised. And look, the last 18, 24 months, whatever, it's not been the best time to raise money. So Sequoia, Capital G, which is an Alphabet, MarTech, all investing in Clay. And they've kind of struck a nerve in the GTM community. They sort of invented GTM engineer as a role, and then their platform as the tool that role would use to do its job. And they've spawned a bunch of folks that you can find on YouTube and elsewhere showing you how to use the tool and call themselves Claygencies. Marc and I were talking earlier. This is the stuff marketers sort of dream of, right? That like people will sprout up and start helping you sell your tool. And look, I'm sure they did a lot of work to get there, but there's some luck involved. And they hit the nerve. They did it.
Yeah, I think what consultants, which I am for better or worse, one of, I mean, we call that category design, right? Yeah. They have designed themselves a category. They identified, we've been talking, I mean, it's been 12 years since I've been at PwC, but like back 12 years ago, we were talking about the changing buyer journey, going from a funnel to a web. This is 15-year-old information. We were talking back then about the shift of buyer behavior in terms of like when buyers want to engage sales teams. That's only accelerated. Now it's almost flipped over. Now we're starting to see data that suggests that even in the enterprise, people don't want to talk to salespeople until very late in the process. So like we're in this new world. We're now about to go into the agentic world where, again, in my journeys last night, I got access to Perplexity Pro for the first time. So I'm like, let me give this thing a ride. It's quite good what you can do with these tools. They're very, very powerful. And so GTM itself, go-to-market itself, is going through a little bit of a renaissance. I think Loop plays into that a little bit, and so does AI. And so there's a call for new tools. There's a call for new mechanisms. A couple of years ago, we worked with ostensibly a GTM engineer. I don't think he called himself that. We should have him on the show to talk more about this because he's an expert. And he was slinging data around like, I don't know, like Papa John's pizza. Like I was watching. The way he does his consulting business, he goes on screen and he goes like, we build the ICP together, we build the list together, we build the messaging together, and it's this weird alchemy of I'm really good at data. I don't need to know SQL anymore because it's all point and click, right? It's just an interface, but it is allowing you to do things like the use case that it's kind of stuck with me is when someone changes a job and they're new in the role. Anybody at a VP level plus is going to evaluate the team within the first 30, 60, 90 days, right? So if you know that this person just took a VP job at a company that is struggling with revenue, but they got funding, for example, and you can know all this through Clay, then you can craft really specific messages. Hey, congrats on the new gig. I saw you just started a couple of months ago. You're probably going through this situation. I see that your revenue is down. Are you having problems with go-to-market motions? We might be able to help. Like the personalization capabilities, if you're creative in using Clay, are kind of unlimited, and it sort of unhooks again, I go back to the Don Pepper's Martha Rogers thing. Like you really can personalize at a level that is not creepy. It's not like, oh, I know you went to this college and, dear Scott, it's like, I understand probably what your problem is. And so I think that GTM engineer category design it does matter because we're all of us who are trying to run sales and revenue operations, right? It's gotten hard and it's continued to stay hard. And so I think Clay represents that really interesting, like, scaffolding behind, like, okay, you can talk about personalization, you can talk about cold outreach, and you can talk about go-to-market motions, but like, how do you actually do it? And this is why I've decided to spend some of my time late at night watching videos and join the Clay cohort. Like, how does this actually work? I know that I'm fascinated by, like, the reason I left PwC, frankly, was I felt so far away from execution. I'm like, I'm talking high level strategy, but like, how does any of this stuff actually work? You know, Scott, you mentioned like SEO, GEO, like, what are the actual mechanisms of writing content for an LLM powered world? I had a term the other day. I don't know if you guys have heard this. Have you heard the term dual web yet?
No, I
Okay,
love this.
so it's great, right? So I have a white paper up in one of my 97,000 tabs. I shared it with Danny Goodwin. I'm like, have you heard this term? He says, no. Strangely enough, I got it from a TikToker. Like, who knows? Maybe it's fake. I don't know. But the concept is that you can, high level concept, you can redirect LLMs through platforms like Cloudflare and redirects and stuff like that to look at a different set of content that is structured for the LLMs. So you can still do your SEO and you can still get whatever clicks you can get out of Google, but you can sort of, like, the way you need to semantically rewrite content for LLMs so that it gives you the citations, like dual web. My brain, and you guys will remember this, my brain went back to mobile web. Remember that shit show? We got to have two freaking websites now? What?
I was actually thinking of the sitemaps.
It's like, yeah.
We're all for the bots and not really for the people, but every website.
Exactly. So it feels like we're in this loop. It feels a little Groundhog Day to me, a little bit, in terms of, like, I don't know if you guys have encountered some of this, but like, you know, you really can inject. SEMrush published a story about this. I think we might have found it, Mike. I think you might have told Lee about it, but they published a story about an experiment that a guy made up a term and only published it to Google. Like, it literally, like, robot, like, nothing is allowed to scrape this piece of content. He made up a fake term. He showed it to Google, and like within a couple of days, it started showing up in the LM, this fake term. So we're back in this, like, gray hat SEO-ish nonsensey, like, we're going to game the engines, and that's fine. The difference, of course, is that you got multiple engines, multiple LLMs who are all revving their versions quickly. It's not like Google with Penguin and this and that. This is a much more radical situation. So anyway, back to Clay. Clay is really interesting. And it feels to me, and I'm about 75% of the way through the tutorials, and I'm going to do this cohort, and I'm in their Slack channel. It feels to me like the ultimate, like, go-to-market engineer is a pretty good term. It's very technical. The learning curve kind of goes from the basic use cases are simple, and then all of a sudden it gets very difficult because you're slinging data in really specific ways. And so it's a really interesting thing. And I know there's other vendors on the I haven't really looked into other vendors. I know there's a bunch of people that are coming into the market that do similar things. But boy, it's really powerful when you think about how you get to that next level of personalization and go to market, and how do you really do cold outreach, and how do you arm salespeople with intel to make connections to drive revenue. It's powerful stuff. I'm fairly blown away, to be honest, and I'm just at the beginning of the journey.
And there's a lot of different roles in, like, the revenue organization that can lean on Clay. Marketers can use it. It's sort of the most well known is kind of the hunters, the go find these people and email them. And I think that's where there's been some negativity towards it, is the people who don't like that sort of outreach, the BDR, SDR stuff, now being amplified thanks to AI and tools like Clay, because executives get hammered with those emails.
Yeah, and so now, right, we've got, it's a wonderful perfect storm. So leveraging things like Clay, let me just make sure I've got this, is you have the ability to, like, get really honed in on, you know, like, very specific signals to those individuals. You know, now you can feed this stuff into LLMs. It's able to create an incredibly human, personalized, well-crafted email. That entire thing end-to-end can be agentified. So actually I don't need any humans involved, and as much compute power I want to throw at it, you know, have at it. And by the way, all of this stuff is commercially available. So theoretically, every company on the planet can now do this. Right. You know, it's hard not to see this as basically like a 10x, 100x, 1000x, you know, explosion in highly personalized, well-tuned, you know, outbound connections. At the end of the day, I'm like, the effing buyer here, like, you know, the math has not changed for them in the amount of time they have to, like, go through this. And so I mean, one of the things, and I know we're going to have that session in, November talking about agents. There's really amazing things we're seeing on these agents that are seller side agents. But to me, the thing that really needs to happen here, and you're starting to see some of these early threads of this, is the buyers need their agents, because you can just not be a human up against this army, of seller AI and have any hope of surviving the onslaught. But I think if you start to get to a place where buyers have their front lines of agents, that's like, hey, you fire away your most targeted stuff, and my agents are going to interpret that, and they're going to negotiate that and weigh that against my things. They may even come back and ask you questions, and by all means, let it be this massive negotiation that happens between these agents. But for me as a buyer human, for the love of God, make it stop.
Yeah, and what's funny is Jay Schwedelson, who is kind of in the email world. I was in his session at Inbound, and he said something really, I thought, insightful and interesting based on his data. And what he said was, executives 2-to-1 are giving personal emails and not corporate emails as a defense mechanism, which is really interesting because a lot of people key on, do we have a business address and can we validate who this person is? We don't know who egghead123@gmail is. It turns out it's the CEO of the exact buyer company, and we didn't know it, right? And so Clay can help with some of that stuff, and other platforms help with some of that stuff. But I think, Scott, what you're getting at is, why is that happening in the first place? And the truth is, when we do have agents on our phones, which is just coming, right? I mean, again, I got access to Comment yesterday. I haven't really played with it, but oh my God, you're going to put barriers up in front. They're going to be good barriers. I think you're right. You're going to let the agents kind of negotiate themselves. The other thing about Clay that I just thought of as we were talking about it is, Clay's primarily email, right? You're slinging data back and forth on email. But what happens when you plug a platform like Clay into a mobile app or web experience, and you truly deliver not just personalized email, but actual personalized experiences where the entire website itself is changing based on the things that we think we know about you? And that's a really you sort of I'm just sitting here going, oh, hadn't added that dot together. That's coming also.
Well, see, that's the thing that I actually think is great. When you start applying this technology to better serving the inbound experience, and not the narrow version of inbound methodology, just the idea of okay, a customer actually wants to engage with us. Boy, the more you can tailor that experience and help them and accelerate getting them the right things they want at the right time. I think that's phenomenal. It's just the sort of, agentified outbound assault that I'm just having a hard time seeing and excuse me, which buyer wants this?
Right. The web experience is passive. You go to the website. Hey, look, it's personalized. Hopefully you got the data right, so you're getting it right for people. But when you're on the receiving end, like you said, anybody who's ever talked to people who were in that hunter mode, the BDR, SDR, they've always said, I only need one, right? I only need one person to buy. And now you've got tools where instead of, 100 a day, the sky's the limit trying to get that one.
Yeah, I mean, the short-term opportunity is those who know how to manipulate the scaffolding, the Clays of the world, are going to have a decided advantage over those who don't. To your point, Scott, everybody has access to tools. It's not about that. But if you're an SDR or a marketing person, you invest time in something like Clay, but I'm not saying you should go buy Clay by any means, but if you invest in something like Clay or other platforms like it, even ZoomInfo or any data platform, and you know what you're doing and you're experimenting and you're trying, your odds don't have to go up. I mean, this is still a direct mail game, right? I come from direct mail, right? A 1% or a 0.5% response rate on an infomercial at night, and you're a millionaire. That's what you're looking for, because you're reaching millions of people. So the question is, if you can scale up your personalized research and maintain your, frankly, crappy response rates, you win. That's the short-term game. That's not the game that will be I don't think that's the game that happens in the long term.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah. And I think again, I'm limited experience, but again, last night I was up till the middle of the night. And what I did was I set up so I've been starting to use ChatGPT as a to-do list manager. It's really an interesting experiment. It's kind of fun. And it's helping me organize my thoughts and all this stuff. And I realized last night, I can just tell ChatGPT, make this a task. So every morning at 7:00, it just comes to me. So to your point, Mike, it's now pushing. So if I'm in the market for something and I go to ChatGPT or Perplexity or whatever, and I say, listen, I'm just at the beginning of my of the, you know, I wouldn't say it this way. I'm at the beginning of my journey, but I'm at the beginning of thinking about I need a CRM. We're going to replatform. Do some research for me, and then send me the report, and it pushes the report. Okay, great. Now I ask a couple questions, and then it's like, okay, this is like a 6-month project, so I just want to monitor these 3 companies over the next 6 months. Just like all of a sudden, you can create your own push mechanism with an agent, and that's, I think, the point that we're trying to get to it, which is like the buyer is actually in control, and these are the tools that will firmly put them there. And now it doesn't matter how much email you send them. I mean, your well-crafted emails, like, again, the premise of direct mail is if you can send more mail and maintain response rates, you win. But I don't think that's going to happen for the reason that you just said, Scott. Like, there's going to be too much, and most of it's going to be crap. So I
actually,
think
most of it's going to be great. That's the problem.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. Well, for some of them, will be great. I mean, look, you could we could play the other. We'll do what's on your feed, but my favorite game is to see what's in your email, and I love looking at the promotions tab. Like, I think that is so fun to go like, oh, look at this nonsense. The stuff that you get is so bad that it's almost laughable. And I'm not even talking about spam. I'm talking about just well-crafted promotion emails that are like a giant image, right? Like those ones, or the ones that have like 80,000 M dashes. You're like, hey, I wrote this. I'm not reading this. Like, I think that the average marketer is actually completely overwhelmed, as we were saying earlier, and they're not doing a good job. So, the ones who are doing a job, I think in the short term have an outsized benefit against everybody else, but I don't think that advantage is going to last forever. Could be wrong. Who knows? Usually am.
All right,
on the time horizon.
That's right.
All right, you brought up what's on your feed.
Yep.
It's getting to be about that time. So.
Yep. Scott, do you want to play? We didn't really set this up. If you're interested in playing what's on your feed, there's a button at the bottom of your screen with an arrow. It's like a little box with an arrow. If you hit that, it'll ask you to share your screen. Set up LinkedIn, and you just refresh it, and you show us what's on your feed.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, why not? What's the worst that could happen?
Exactly. That's what we say here at MarTech.org. What's the worst that could happen?
All right.
We were told, by the way, that we skip over the ads, weren't we?
Oh, yeah, we do typically skip over the ads. Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Ooh, so I've got something from the co-founder and CEO of Gamma, Groovy AI. How much do you want me to like go into this? Like
a little bit. I mean, the whole thing is like, what's interesting to you? Talk about it for a couple of minutes, and then that's it. Like, if it's interesting to you, it's interesting to us.
Okay. Well, not surprising, I'd end up with a tremendous amount of MarTech vendor things in my feed, particularly a lot of AI ones, but that's always fun. All right, that's the promoted one. Hey, look! I mean, like, I have the MarTech expert himself here.
So this is interesting that you brought this. This was an experiment we did. I was on the phone with the head of our marketing services department, and he goes, I was on a webinar, and they said this really cool thing about a GPT, and I was like, I'll make a video about that and just throw it up there. So this is semi-promotional, but also interesting that these guys created a free GPT as part of just their thinking, which I thought was really, really neat. So, that's what that is.
All right. Jay McBain. How many of you know Jay McBain?
I know the name.
Oh man, this guy's phenomenal. He is like, all right, so if you're anywhere associated with partnerships or, channel or anything like this, this is the man. This is the person. So yeah, definitely worth following. Let's see here. What else do we have? Daniel Zarek. Did you meet him at Inbound? He's the CEO of Arrows.
I didn't.
So this is actually one of the success stories of a company that founded, like a technology company founded on the HubSpot platform. It is this fantastic product for like onboarding, helping, in customer success, customer service, getting people onboarded to your product or your service, and then expanded into like deal rooms for what happens before the sale. Anyway, great guy.
Scott, let me ask you a question about that, what you just said with Arrow. How many companies in the ecosystem are starting with just HubSpot as the dedicated ecosystem partner to launch? Maybe they expand later, but how many are just like straight up like, no, we were built for HubSpot?
Yeah, where I last left it, I'd say it was about a 90-10 split. So like 90% were like standalone independent SaaS companies that build an integration to HubSpot. But probably had integrations to other platforms too. About 10% were really built for HubSpot. Out of those, the vast majority of them were solutions partners or services partners who, had often like built custom things for individual clients. And then, they'd start to see these patterns of like, oh, this is this reusable thing, or like, we've got this particular expertise in this, and they would package that up into a product. But Daniel was a little bit different because this really is like, in many ways, it's like a full-blown SaaS application. But, for years, companies who were starting out would like start out in the Salesforce ecosystem. Daniel's company was one that was like, no, we're going to start out in the HubSpot ecosystem. And actually, there's a case that even HubSpot has adopted arrows for how we do onboarding. So Daniel's a force of nature.
That's amazing. Interesting.
Let's see. I have lots of HubSpot colleagues here in my feed. Folks talking about inbound. Ooh, Tom Fishburne. We love Tom. Let's see here. I guess, all right, if I'm looking for a new job, that idea.
Are you looking for a new job?
Not right now. Not today.
Not at this moment.
Okay, Thursday, but yeah, check in with me tomorrow.
Okay.
Let's see here. There's something kind of cool here, by the way. I'll just say about, I don't know, there's probably mixed opinions about like the more personal and like non-purely work, purely professional things being on LinkedIn. I think it's great. I think it's, particularly post-pandemic stuff. They have this stuff to just like help us be more human with each other. And frankly, so many of the other social networks have been so, to use Cory Doctorow's phrase, been shitified, beyond belief. I don't know. I kind of enjoy this stuff.
I agree. Totally agree.
All right. So is this enough of the feed?
You played the game correctly, Scott. Congratulations. You win. You win the game. You won.
I was the only player, but I did win, so that was good.
Well, we fixed it for you. So
there you go. That's awesome. We know that we know that we've kept you for 50 minutes. So thank you so much for joining us. This was amazing. It's good to see you again, even though I just saw you last week, but I can't ever get enough Scott Brinker. So it's awesome. Okay. Good luck on your next adventures. We're excited to see what you're up to.
We'll see you on November 4th.
All right. Mark and Mike. Bye.
Right. See ya. Let me get us back on. Here we go. Boom. There we go. You want to do a round? You want me to do a round?
You do it because I actually don't have it open.
All right.
My bad.
Let's share that sucker and let me hit refresh and see what we get. Get a logo. LinkedIn is down. No. There we go. All right. Oh, Sangram. No shock there. 90% of the companies still run the old GTM playbook. So, Sangram is beating the drum on the go-to-market. What's that?
Somebody should do a podcast about that.
Yeah. Oh, I did. It's coming out in a few weeks. We had a great conversation. We talk about a bunch of things. We talk about executive ego and not recognizing the shift in the GTM world. We talk specifically about the shift of software to service to software, which is a really interesting conversation. Highly recommend it. Sangram's a good guy. I did not see him at Inbound, but he was there. I saw him from afar. This is a promoted post. We'll just skip that. We always do this. There's us.
Yep, there we go.
There's us. Nick Zekitz, he shows up on feed a lot. I was supposed to meet him at Inbound, and I ended up going to a private dinner that I got invited to. But Nick is building a company called Smoke Signals, I think. Again, GTM. I'm like tied into a lot of GTM stuff lately. Lewis Holmes. Is this promoted? This is probably promoted. Oh, who is this guy? 3 times New York Times bestseller. Calmness isn't a personal trait. It's a leadership strategy. I think that's great. I don't know what that video is. Rachel Steven, speaking at Inbound 25. Oh, I met her. She runs a event tech. She's involved with event tech, event profs deal. Event marketing insights. Impressive open rates for peer-to-peer marketing across industries. Yeah, she's Snowball. That's right. Yeah, I have a call with her in a couple weeks to catch up. Lisa Sharapata is amazing. Tim Hillison introduced me to her. She runs metadata. They did an activation. This is funny. They did an activation at Inbound where they gave away, I think I told you this, Mike. They gave away a Vespa but a person knocked the Vespa over apparently and scratched it, and so I guess they're going to give it away later. I don't know, but I met her and Tim, and we hung out for a little bit. Lisa's a good new friend and a great contact.
Depends how fast their insurance company works.
Yes, exactly. Quickly, I think. Juan Mendoza and Odd Morton Sorensen talking about MarTech. Oh, MarTech World Forum is going on right now. Looks like they got caught up in the tube strike. That's fun. Oops. Oh, like look at this picture. Oh, that doesn't look fun. That actually looks terrible. That looks terrible. But they still made it. So that's good. And then let's see. Let's go one more. That's promoted. Let's skip that. What do we got right underneath? Oh, our buddy Steve Walensky, remembering 9/11. We said we were going to talk about 9/11, but there it is. Steve doing us a favor, talking about 9/11. Today is the 24th anniversary of 9/11. Our heart goes out to all those who lost people. And it's amazing that it's been 24 years. Unbelievable.
Crazy.
That's my feed.
All right. I think that pretty much does it for us. For this edition of MarTech Live, remember, MarTech Conference coming up next week. One last time, scan that QR code free online. No reason not to register. 6 live.
Oops. I kicked Mike off. Hold on.
What?
I kicked you off, Mike.
You kicked me off.
I kicked you off. I tried to go to a two thing, and I forgot that you can't do that on Vimeo without blowing it up. So I apologize.
All right. So we were just saying that does it for this edition of MarTech Live. Remember, MarTech Conference coming up next Wednesday, the 17th. 6 live panel discussions on AI and data. Free to attend and online, so no reason not to snap that QR code and get yourself registered if you aren't. And if you are, we'll see you there.
See ya.